Hello, everybody. This is Empowering Democracy. Sorry about that. This is Empowering Democracy. I'm your host, Joe Firestone. This is one of our Neoliberalism shows. And our topic for today is Kelton's sacred cows. And this is the title of a Substack post by Stephanie Kelton, the first in some time. I'll bring up the post right now. It's called Sacred Cows by Stephanie Kelton, and it's at the Lens. The Lens. I think I am subscribed. If I'm not, I don't know why I'm getting all the emails. But anyway, there was an interesting discussion with Evercore's Roger Altman on CNBC's Squawk Box yesterday. When was yesterday? Well, the date of this post was January 27th. So that was January 26th. Altman talked about some of the things that economists, market participants, pundits, and policymakers have gotten wrong in recent years. Here's part of what he said. Quote, "What I think is fascinating about how wrong the consensus on big things has been over the past year, starting with inflation, where when it first surged originally, the view was this is transitory. It will self-correct. Jay Powell himself espoused that. Then as it surged further, that view was discarded. And the Fed, of course, embarked on the sharpest monetary tightening in 40 years. Now it looks as though it was transitory, just over a somewhat longer period, including that the tightening of monetary policy may have had no effect on why inflation has come down. Then recession. 6 to 9 months ago, a majority of CEOs and surveys thought we were going to have a recession. Now we don't have it, and the most recent data is amazing. So recession is off the table. My other browser. I did not have the subscribe problem. So, excuse me while I get rid of this. Here we are, back again. Then recession. 6 to 9 months ago, the majority of CEOs and surveys thought we were going to have a recession. Now, we don't have it, and the most recent data is amazing, so recession is off the table. So there's the video of what Roger Altman had to say. In response, one of the show's hosts, Andrew Ross Sorkin, said, quote, "I think you're making an argument of why the public thinks the elites know nothing," unquote. Responding with a sense of humility, Altman said, "Well, arguably, they do know nothing, including me. I was wrong on all those things," unquote. Sorkin conceded, quote, "I was wrong on a lot of them too." Then another of the show's hosts, Joe Kernan, chimed in, adding, Quote, all of our sacred cows, they're sacred, but they're not necessarily right. We thought we had to raise unemployment to bring inflation down. We didn't. That was like uh, 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 that was monetary policy 101, like Moses on a tablet, unquote. Quote, so much of this in retrospect was supply chain related, Altman explained, quote again, and now it has self-corrected, unquote. Going on with Stephanie. It has taken a long time for people to accept this reality, but membership on so-called Team Transitory continues to swell. It's a bitter pill for some folks to swallow, especially those who would prefer to blame the recent bout of inflation on the Federal Reserve's, quote, uh, the money printing, unquote, and the Biden administration's, quote, excessive spending, unquote. Happened to see a few days ago, Jeffrey Sachs seemed to be blaming the inflation on the money printing by the Federal Reserve and the Biden administration's excessive spending. I was really surprised to see that, but he was evidently not on Team Transitory. Quote, if it wasn't overspending by fiscal authorities that caused the inflation, if it was supply chain, then can we just do MMT, unquote, Kernan sarcastically quipped. Altman didn't take the bait on MMT. He simply said, quote, it was the pandemic that caused it. What I found most interesting about the interview is the discussion of the rate hikes and Altman's willingness to basically reject the dominant, quote, soft landing, unquote, narrative. That narrative features a plane, okay, a runway, and most importantly, a masterful pilot. It is not uncommon to find economists and others proudly declaring that they were OG members of Team Transitory, TT. And she said, I myself was OGTT, meaning old guy, Team Transitory. But I think too many members of Team Transitory have convinced themselves that Jay Powell is the central bank equivalent of Captain Sully Sullenberger, the hero in the cockpit of the FOMC, that is the Federal Open Market Committee, who skillfully lowered the flaps, adjusted the dials, and guided inflation safely back down without injuring the broader economy. Stephanie says, I am decidedly not in that camp, and neither is Altman, who dared to suggest, and quote again from Altman, the tightening of monetary policy may have had no impact on why inflation has come down, unquote. That's a pretty sacred cow, but it's one I hope more people will wrestle with. I went even further in a recent interview with the Financial Times, sparking this headline. Everybody talks about a soft landing. Inflation has come down in spite of what the Fed has done, not because of what the Fed has done, unquote. And the source of that, of course, was Stephanie Kelton to the Financial Times. Last week, I had a chance to elaborate on the Financial Times interview with the hosts of Bloomberg TV's The Close. And we can click to watch, but it's too long to do so. So we're not going to do that. But this is Kelton on goods and services. Maybe we will click on that to watch it. Let's see. We can probably click there. So let's see if we get. That's Bill Gross of PIMCO there. Okay, maybe this is better and includes just Stephanie's part. Nope, doesn't seem to be any better. So, okay, I cannot access this as easily as I had hoped. There it is. Okay, so that's enough for now. There are a couple of points, okay, that I want to make. Can you hear me now, okay? There are a couple of points, okay, I want to make. First of all, Stephanie, in that statement, barely mentioned, okay, if at all, that uh, a good bit of the inflation, okay, that took place was not simply due to supply chain problems, but was also due to price gouging. And the price gouging is still going on, which partly accounts for the fact that prices are not falling back quite as vigorously as the public would like. The second point, okay, I want to make is that uh, while of course, okay, the definition of inflation refers to the rate of change, okay, in pricing. From the standpoint of the consumer, the inflation has occurred in the past. The prices have gone up, and then in certain areas of the economy, such as in food shopping, for example, the prices have not fallen back. They are largely still high. And that means that the gripes that the consumers had, beginning in what, 2021, 2022, are gripes they are still having now. Uh, and so when the federal government says, oh, the inflation is over, it's certainly over from the standpoint of the rate of change in prices, but okay, it's not over from the perceived point of view of the consumer, and will not be over until the prices fall back. And the people who are in control, okay, of the economy at the time that this happened, the time, okay, of the inflation, uh, are still angry, or I should say, consumers are still angry at them and blame them for the inflation, even though the inflation has come down, and will continue to blame them. Okay, then, of course, I do think that Stephanie is right, of course, especially in the comparison of the Bank of Japan, okay, to the Federal Reserve. Inflation in Japan wasn't near what it was here, okay, in the United States, because the interest rates stayed down in Japan and did not go up. So that's a key thing, okay, to keep in mind. Uh, One reason why the prices are continuing to be high and not to go down is that the interest rate costs, which are higher now, have been built into the system by the Fed because the Fed won't back off of the interest rates. So that's tending to support the higher prices. Now, as Stephanie also mentioned, it's stimulating, okay, the economy because hundreds of billions of dollars are going to interest because the interest rates are so high. And one of the reasons why the economy seems to stay so strong is because of the fiscal stimulus that is being caused by the Federal Reserve and by its high interest rates. So, just to summarize, supply chains problems, price gouging problems, high interest rate problems. Three big factors in keeping prices up there. First, in causing the inflation, and then in keeping prices up there. And so I think that's the way that MMT looks at inflation. And Bill Mitchell, of course, who is one of the MMT fathers, as it were, that is Bill Mitchell, okay, Randy Ray, okay, and Warren Mosler, the three fathers of MMT, okay, I would argue, points out when the government dumped billions onto the market during COVID, groups like the Chamber of Commerce, actually anyone attempting to sell stuff, knew that they could raise prices. And they price gouged, not to be too gentle about it. And we know that they did. And then they raved about the higher profits that they had gotten due to the fact that they raised prices to their stockholders. And so price gouging was a major factor. Not too long ago, the Economic Policy Institute did some regression analysis. And one of the results was that the two main factors in the price increases were supply chain problems and price gouging. They also estimated the amount of the price rises that were due to pressure from labor, and they found that accounted only for 8% in the variation in prices. So there it is. Okay, labor was a very minor factor. Of course, what the EPI did not estimate was the role of the Federal Reserve, their rise in interest rates in driving inflation. But clearly, they were a problem. Okay, clearly, they were a problem. So, very interesting blog post, okay, by Stephanie, an interesting debate she had, okay, with the Bloomberg people. I hope she persuaded them that the Federal Reserve did not do what they should have done. They would have been much better off to act like the Bank of Japan acted. I suspect that Bill Mitchell had something to do with the way the Bank of Japan acted, because I'm pretty sure they watch his commentary very, very closely. So that's all for this particular stream. Thank you for coming. I'll be seeing you later tonight, because I will be back, okay, at 8 o'clock with my third stream of the day. And that stream is going to be on, it's going to be an empowering democracy stream, as this stream was. And it's going to be about the targeting on Venezuela of the U.S. government. In other words, the coup attempts by the U.S. government, okay, and by the corporations, and the relation of this to the coming end of the U.S. empire. Okay. So that will be later, okay, at 8 o'clock this evening. For now, I bid you farewell.